This murder in an attempt to draw public attention to his dislike of certain businesses. But we live in a civilized society governed by the rule of law. We debate, we disagree, we protest. We do not commit murder. No grievance, political belief, or ideological cause can ever justify murder. There can be no celebrity in assassination. Any person who celebrates, encourages, or excuses actions like these is fundamentally wrong. Mangione attempted to send a public message through violence, but the message that emerges today is very different. Violence is not a legitimate instrument to promote any political or social message. And those who resort to violence in an effort to advance their beliefs will be prosecuted, convicted, and put in jail. Today, the Southern District of New York, together with our law enforcement partners, writes the final chapter of Mangione's federal prosecution. Now, he stands convicted in federal court and faces life in prison. One other point that's important to note. While the defendant pled guilty, our office does not have a plea agreement with him. Instead, he pled open, which means he pled guilty to all pending counts in the indictment. There are no accommodations or concessions, and we are free to seek the maximum penalty under the law. I'd like to thank the dedicated prosecutors of our office's Violent Organizations and Crime Unit, who are beside me, for their remarkable efforts to bring this case. I would also like to thank the NYPD and the FBI, whose tireless and incredibly sophisticated investigative efforts made this conviction possible. Finally, I want to express on behalf of all of us here our deepest sympathy and compassion for the many family members and friends of Brian Thompson. Mr. Thompson's family and many of his friends were in court for the guilty plea today. I know they will have an opportunity to be heard at sentencing. We all stand in awe of their love for their family and for their friend, and their unwavering commitment to seeing justice done in this case. We hope they can take some solace in the fact that from the beginning, we have brought the full force of the federal government to bear in this case. In this prosecution, we have consistently pursued the maximum penalties under the law as necessary and just punishment for these crimes. The result achieved today now allows our office to seek the maximum penalty allowed, life imprisonment, which, as I've conveyed to Mr. Thompson's family, is what we intend to seek. I'll now turn it over to Commissioner Tisch.
Good afternoon. Thank you, U.S. Attorney McDonald, and thank you to the prosecutors and the federal law enforcement partners who have worked alongside the New York City Police Department throughout this case. Today, Luigi Mangione pleaded guilty in connection with the murder of Brian Thompson on a Midtown Manhattan sidewalk in December of 2024. This is an important moment of accountability, and my thoughts remain first and foremost with Mr. Thompson's family and everyone who knew and loved him. But I also want to take a few minutes today to recognize the extraordinary police work that brought us here. From the moment that Mr. Thompson was assassinated on the morning of December 4th, the NYPD mobilized an enormous investigative effort. Our detectives combed through thousands of hours of surveillance video, followed up on hundreds of tips, and worked through an extraordinary volume of forensic and digital evidence. They used some of the most sophisticated technology available to law enforcement, and they paired it with the kind of painstaking, old-fashioned detective work that has defined the New York City Police Department for generations, interviewing witnesses, canvassing neighborhoods, retracing the suspects' movements, and pursuing every viable lead. Most importantly, they developed a clear image of the man we were looking for and got that image out to the public and to law enforcement agencies across this country 5 days after the murder. That work paid off in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where an alert member of the public recognized Mangione and local police took him into custody. That was not simply a lucky break. It was the culmination of 5 days of relentless investigative work that gave the public the information it needed to recognize the suspect and gave our law enforcement partners what they needed to act. This case began with the worst kind of violence on our streets. It was answered by the very best of the New York City Police Department. To every member of the NYPD who played a role in this investigation, you should be enormously proud for bringing us to this day. And to those who idolize Luigi Mangione, I say this: violence is not a cause, murder is not a message, and a killer is certainly not a hero. Now I'd like to introduce the FBI's Assistant Director in Charge for the New York Field Office, Jim Barnacle.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good day. My name is James Barnacle. I'm the Assistant Director in Charge of the FBI New York Field Office. I want to begin by addressing the family, friends, and colleagues of Brian Thompson. We had the chance to sit down with the family this morning, and they are still grieving, and they have been grieving for almost 2 years as Brian was taken away in the most heinous way possible. They lost a son, a brother, a husband, and a father, and a friend to many colleagues and other people. The family deserves closure, the clarity, and the assurance that every step taken throughout our investigation, the New York City Police Department's investigation, the Altoona Police Department's investigation, and the U.S. Attorney's Office prosecution reflected the gravity of the situation and the importance of Brian's life. While today's plea doesn't replace the void he left behind, I hope it offers a glimmer of the closure that the Thompson family and friends deserve. This tragedy shocked the nation and left a deep impact on everyone it touched. Violence driven by hostility toward opportunity and success stands in sharp contrast to the values true Americans hold dear. But rest assured, this FBI and our partners never stopped working to bring this killer to justice. While a plea was entered today, we know the crime has not been erased. Thank you to the FBI's Violent Crime Task Force, our largest partner on that task force, the New York City Police Department, the New York State Police Department. Thank you to the prosecutors and the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, led by Jamie McDonald. Thank you. And I want to thank the officers and detectives of the New York City Police Department, led by Commissioner Tisch, for your agency's unwavering pursuit of truth and accountability. Thank you, Commissioner. I'd also like to thank the Altoona Police Department in Pennsylvania and the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, who helped facilitate the extradition to New York. We're incredibly grateful to our partners, and we wish the Thompson family comfort and strength as the legal process continues. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Thank you all.
We just heard there from the FBI's James Barnacle saying this FBI and our partners never stop working to bring Mangione to justice. Luigi Mangione admitting earlier today in court in New York to fatally shooting a health insurance executive. He pleaded guilty to 2 federal charges of stalking the executive with the intent to kill him, that executive being United Healthcare boss Brian Thompson. We also heard from the US attorney, there can be no celebrity in assassination. He said Mangione attempted to send a message through violence. Anyone who does that will be prosecuted, sentenced and put in jail. He faces life in prison, something which prosecutors say they will be seeking. Well, let's bring in our US correspondent, James Matthews. James, this case has really gripped the USA since the shooting took place in 2024, I think it was. Some seeing Mangione as some kind of celebrity when it comes to fighting corporate culture, especially healthcare and the extensive costs many have to pay in the United States.
Yeah, there is a cause, and there is deep frustration across society here at the healthcare system. Insurers declining to pay out. That's one thing. And clearly that's what motivated Mangione in this instance. But there's a cause, and there is cold-blooded murder. And I think the police and prosecutors were keen to draw a distinction between both right there and place the name of Brian Thompson front and centre in all of this. He was a United Healthcare CEO. He was a multi-millionaire, had done well in life for himself. But he was a father of 2 sons. He was an innocent man who was attending an investors' conference, walking into a hotel at 6:45 in the morning, and he was shot in the back. We heard today he was shot 7 times, had turned at one point to face the shooter, the hooded shooter, who turned out to be Luigi Mangione. I think what gripped the nation, as much as anything else, was the mystery about who that hooded man was. He escaped on a bike, got into a taxi cab, had stayed prior to the shooting in a New York hostel, and we saw those images at the heart of the public appeal. Who is this man with the cheekbones, the distinctive eyebrows, and ultimately he was on the run for 5 days. That's how long the manhunt lasted. They caught up with him at a McDonald's restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Customers recognized him. A call was made to the police, and sure enough, there he was. That was nearly 2 years ago. Today, what we had was the crime, in the words of the killer, Jonathan. It lasted, it was pushing an hour inside court, room number 110, packed. And on the front row, right-hand side, was the family of Brian Thompson. For the first time, to my reckoning, being in the same room as the man who killed their father, brother, and son. There were hard stares, there were tears on that bench as Mangione came into court. Swaggered, rather, I thought. I've seen him before. I saw him hours after he was arrested, shackled, looked a bit bewildered then. He was unshaven. You know, he'd been on the run for 5 days. I remember him looking at me, almost in a challenging, what are you looking at sense, you know? But that was then. This is now. And he enjoys this dark celebrity. You know, he has supporters who have raised more than $1 million in a legal crowdfunder. So that's where he is now. And he had an air of confidence about him, walked in, hands behind his back, standing straight up, shoulders back, never exchanged a look with the family of Brian Thompson. But he went through the whole process of pleading guilty. The judge said, I have to be sure that what your lawyer's telling me is something that you are signed up for. And he duly did that, spoke about the crime, said that he had the intent to kill Brian Thompson. We learned that he'd been stalking him the day before in and around the hotel. His lawyer said that he had been wronged by the system, that his life had been destroyed. This is a man who had a broken back, Mangione. She didn't take any questions, neither did he. They are Karen Agnafilo and Mark Agnafilo. They didn't take any questions. I took the opportunity to ask them one or two. Let's have a look. Excuse me, sir. James Matthews from Sky News. Does your client have any sympathy or feel remorse for the man that he shot in the back? So do you have any words for the family of the man who was shot in the back by your client? Madam, you said that Luigi Mangione's life was destroyed. I wonder what words you have today for Brian Thompson. What words does your client have for Brian Thompson? Sentencing of Luigi Mangione will take place on the 18th of December this year. He faces a maximum of life in prison.